shall we deal again? Ah, good. Now you understand the basics. We can begin in earnest.
Hello, my name's Adam Cook, and I'm here with my very good buddy, that's the man, Mike Stubbsy.
Hello.
Oh, I thought maybe that I'd get some plaudits for the rhyming there. I thought that was pretty good, mate.
It wasn't too bad.
My good buddy, Mike. See, if I called you Michael, it would be my good buddy, Michael Stubbsy. It's got more of a camber to the vote. You know, listen, we're here to talk about Hand of Fate, which is a game that I'm guessing most people watching this haven't heard of, have they?
I wouldn't have thought so, because until I had an email about it, I had never heard of it before.
So, I suppose, although they're seeing it, Mike, best thing to do here then is for you to try, because your review will be up very soon, or it may already be up by the time people will see this. Explain what Hand of Fate is. Go.
The basic, easiest way of describing it is Hand of Fate is basically the card version, the trading card version of Dungeons and Dragons. So you play as a character and you've got a deck of cards, and this deck of cards has equipment, it has encounters, spells, and then you've also got resources that are on cards like food and health and gold. And the wizardy man who sits across from you, who's like effectively the dungeon master, he lays out...
Man with exceptionally long fingers, I would say.
Yes, he does look a bit weird, I think. There's just something not quite right about him that just puts me off slightly.
I think he's Bruce Forsyth.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there.
Long fingers. I'm not insinuating anything.
This card dealer man lays out cards on the table in front of you that is effectively your map that you have to go through. And you can choose the direction of which card you go on to next. And each different card will have a different either objective or a different challenge for you to do. So some will take you into a combat mission, some will just be a text-based thing where you can get extra resources or something like that. And the idea is that each of the main story missions has got a boss at the end somewhere in this set of cards that are on the table, and you've got to try and find that card and defeat the boss.
Now, I want to ask you, right? I'm going to age myself and possibly age you in the process. Now, when I was growing up, there you had these things called Choose Your Own Adventure books. Now, do you know what that is? Is that a thing that still happens, or did happen when you were younger?
I don't think so.
So it's a book, literally an old-fashioned hardcover book or softback, a paperback, sorry. And in it, there would be. It would say, kind of like it does in this. It'd be like you approach some guy. Do you A, fight him? B, do this. C, so it gives you the options, and each option, it's like, so if you pick up option A, go to page 72. Option B, go to page 73. And so you would follow it, and it would go through like that. Do you see what I'm getting at in comparison to this game?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But you've never encountered a Choose Your Own Adventure book?
No, not really. I can't really tell you what they are or what they would be like.
No, but that's exactly what it is. It's exactly that, like in a book. But you know, when you pick option A, which is like, you know, give the troll some of your gold, you go to page 73. The troll is so happy and he gives you 10 health. You know, what do you do now? Do you go north? Go to page 70? It's that, and I kind of think this is that idea, but as you say, but more Dungeons and Dragony.
Yeah, I think that's a very good comparison, and I'm going to say that I haven't played too much of Dungeons and Dragons, and even when I did, it was a very sort of not properly fully to the rules, but it does feel just like how I would play Dungeons and Dragons. I think if there was a co-op option, then it would be absolutely spot on.
Well, we talked about this the other night, didn't we? About, like, you know, I wonder if it's successful and they get to do more of it. Like, you know, could there be some sort of competitive multiplayer element? Because you can, and I think, you know, perhaps we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but you can. There is some deck building in here, isn't there? It's not like to the level of a Hearthstone in that respect, but you can build your deck and then go on a mission with the deck you have chosen, you know, and that deck may contain the sword you've picked and the shield you've picked, and there are buffs and stuff that you can. Well, they're card buffs. Like, you know, you will have. Oh, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what they are. One that's like, you know, 15 extra health or something, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think the deck is actually really important the later you go in the game.
Right.
Like early on, you won't have as many cards to add to your deck, so you've kind of got to make do with what you've got. But as the game gets later and you unlock more equipment, putting the right cards in your deck is... If you have the right cards in your deck, it's a lot easier to progress, because if you only rely on, say, one of your good weapons, the chances of you actually drawing that weapon throughout your playthrough are quite slim. But if you have like loads of good weapons that are all in your deck at the same time and are suited to that run, then it becomes a lot easier, because some weapons have and some armor and shields and stuff also have like
elemental stuff, don't they? Like you know, this you know, towards the start of the game when you're fighting against just guys and skeletons, like you want holy damage, and that's I got a weapon, a mace, I think, with holy damage on it. Yeah,
and like generally, it's not always the case, but you can kind of usually predict what sort of enemies are going to be the main ones based on the final boss, especially in the earlier stages. So if you know the end boss is like the Jack of Dust, you can guess that you're going to be fighting a lot of dust enemies, which are the generally human-y type people. And you can tailor your deck to that, so you could use weapons that are more suited to defeating them easily. Which it does depend on on what cards you draw, on if it works or not. But when it does work and you get a really good run, you think, yes, that's what I wanted to happen.
It's one of, I'm going to go on record and say this, and I think you'll probably agree with me. It's one of the most interesting concepts for a game I've played in absolute bloody ages.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just amazed no one's thought of doing something similar before.
That's kind of what I was going to say about a few minutes ago. I was like, how's this, unless it's a genre that none of the rest have ever seen, but it's loads of games. I've never seen anyone do this.
No, I think the closest thing that I could suggest is you've got the Dungeons and Dragons style RPG things, and then you've got your normal trading card games, and I think nothing's been done that merges the two quite as this does.
Well, that's actually something we haven't mentioned. I mean, people will be seeing this in the video that's back in this, but when you do get to a battle encounter, it goes into a sort of third person, I would say a Batman Combat Light version, where you hack and slash your way through with counters, and that, like, you'll get like a red flash, which means you can't counter that. You're going to get hit. You have to press A on the controller to roll out of the way. It's and the combat's, I think the combat's fine. It's enjoyable enough. You're not doing it all the time, are you?
No, you're not. It's not the main portion of the game by any stretch of the imagination. I think I like to compare it to Batman Light crossed with the melee combat of Fable. I think it has a very similar feeling to that of what Fable was, if you can kind of remember what that was.
Yeah.
I think the combat is an area that I think with a bit more time and a bigger budget they could have probably improved on slightly, but that's not to say it's horrific by any means. It's serviceable and can be quite fun at times.
I mean, as I say, it's the most interesting game I've played in ages. It's also probably the nerdiest, right? I mean, I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but this is a very nerdy game, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean...
it's the voiceover and stuff, like, at first you're kind of like, a bit cheesy, but then you sort of realise how good the game is, and you kind of just go with it, and you're like, I'm fine with this being this really nerdy thing. I mean, that's how I felt, anyway. I'm fine with it,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of embraced it because when I did play Dungeons and Dragons, and when I saw the gameplay video of it, I thought, right, this is very similar, so I'll go into it in the same sort of manner. When I played Dungeons and Dragons, it was just one of my friends who is like proper into all these Dungeons and Dragons trying to get us lot to join him, and so we all sort of played up to our characters' personas and were just messing about. So I came into this with sort of the same thing as like, right, this is what my character's going to be, even if the game doesn't give me the options to do that. He's going to be like someone who doesn't particularly like fighting. He's going to try and sneak away from everything, and fortunately the game does let you do that in some occasions. So I think if you embrace it and go full into it, then you can properly immerse yourself. But I don't think it's something to be put off by.
Well, it's interesting, because I was going to ask you, right? It's, how sometimes people will say, oh, well, if you like Gears of War, then you'll like Uncharted. It's like, I don't know what to compare this to. I can't say, yeah, well, if you like X, you'll really like Hand of Fate, because it is so unique to me. Like, I really haven't played anything like this. Can you think of any games that you would say, well, look, if you like that game, you're probably going to like this?
You've put me on the spot there. I don't think I can think of anything.
I mean, Hearthstone ish
to an extent, but I think Hearthstone's a very different game.
It is. I mean, this is a campaign. I mean, it's got the endless mode. I mean, what people are seeing is one of the early campaign levels, and you do, like you say, you go through your map, because that's something we didn't mention, like the little trap levels, where again it goes into third person. You have to navigate not a maze, but a dungeon of traps. But it's not. It's a little bit janky, and I think it shows the third-person controls up a little bit. I found that a little bit more awkward than the combat, but again, it's just constantly fresh ideas. And so when you finish a battle, when you finish a campaign, and you kill a boss or beat a boss, you get, what are they? Those coins you get that reveal new cards, right?
Yeah, I think they're called tokens.
Tokens, and just as you think, well, I've probably seen everything this has got to offer now, it's just going to be this over and over, the tokens reveal just even more things, even more like non-basic combat things, rather than just, oh, now I'm fighting another enemy. There'd be like a whole new encounter where it's like, and now you've met the maiden, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and also with the tokens, you can unlock them by doing other encounters in the game. So some of the areas have branching paths, so you can go one way or the other, and that's what encourages you to explore more of the map, because there's more chance of getting more tokens, which, if you succeed, will unlock more cards, and there's probably better equipment further down the line to make later runs harder.
Yeah, I mean, if there's like 9 cards on the table before you get, because usually the last card first time is a stairs to go down further, but if there's 9 cards, you can probably get to those stairs just by doing like 4 cards.
Yeah.
Not always, but sometimes. But I always just wanted to go over every card and get every card,
See, I started off like that, but then that ended up costing me a run, because I went back and got into an encounter, and I think it was like a devil's choice or something like that, where the devil pops up and he gives you 3 enemies, and he's like, oh, I'll let you choose which one you want to fight or something like that. But then he turns it around, and so like my options were two skeleton cards, so I could have fought 2 skeletons, and then a 3 of dust, so 3 humans.
Yeah.
I chose that I wanted to fight one of the skeletons, obviously, because I thought it'd be easier than humans.
Yeah.
And he went, no, you're going to fight the 2 skeletons and the 3 humans. And so I got into that encounter, and this was like really early on, so it was an encounter that I couldn't do well in.
Right.
And so I ended up losing lots of health.
Yeah.
And then it almost cost me my run. I did manage to just complete it, but it made everything a lot harder. And
see, a similar thing happened to me when I picked there was 3 options. It was 2, 3 or 4. So like I went, well, I'll have the easy one. He goes, no, you're doing the 4. So after that, I was just always pick the hardest option, and he was like, yeah, no, it's fine. So actually, does it get harder? Because I found the combat very, very easy. Very easy. At the start, and obviously you played more than me. Does it get difficult?
The enemies do scale with you.
Okay.
And so, like, the 2 of dust in the first level is not going to be the same as the 2 of dust in the last level.
Right.
It is never overly challenging, providing A, you go into encounters equipped with decent equipment, and B, if you know there's an encounter that you're not going to do well in, you probably shouldn't go into it.
Right.
Like, if you see something that's got like loads of mobs, and you think, I might not do well, then if you go into it, you'll probably end up dying or losing most of your health. The challenge never really comes from individual enemies. It comes from, apart from the sort of bosses at the end of each level, they can be quite challenging, but it comes from the amount of enemies that you have to face at the same time.
Okay, well, I think we'll leave it there, shall we, mate? I mean, what we should just say is, hopefully by the time you're watching this, or at least in a couple of days after it goes live, Mikey's review will be up, and it is available now on PC, Xbox One, and PS4. You've been playing it on Xbox One, I'm on PC, and yeah, this gets the massive thumbs up from both Stubbsy and myself. Go play Hand of Fate, don't you think?
Yep, definitely one to check out. For everyone, really. I don't think there's anyone that wouldn't enjoy it.
Well, thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Shall we deal again?